Hey everybody, Jim over here at Justifiably Proud Productions. Happy you joined us today. Today is Labor Day, September 4th, 2023. Glad to have everybody here today. I wanted to take a little bit and talk about fire apparatus anatomy again. But before we do, I'd like to encourage everybody to subscribe and share our content and help us grow the channel. We really appreciate it. Many years ago, when I first got introduced to fire apparatus in Connellville, Missouri, we were when we learned how to pump. I think I mentioned before that we would be taken out, and usually the oldest truck, the one that was most difficult to operate, and then work our way up through other trucks and apparatus to get checked out on. And sometimes, to some extent, that's still to this day, that's still what happens in many departments. However, um, today's firefighter we're finding is much different, and some of it has to do with the way we're training our firefighters that are up and coming. Some of it has to do with just the high speed activity of the world. Everybody wants stuff now, right away. Uh, just show me how to do it. I'll figure it out, whatever. And when it comes to fire apparatus, especially pumping apparatus, there's really the concept is still the same. However, we don't do a very good job of sharing with our firefighters why we do things, in my opinion. Working in an administrative support division at my current department, we see a lot of work orders that come in um, that sometimes it's the actual device working as designed. Sometimes it's operator error. Sometimes it's just, oh, I didn't know that's how that operates. Fire pumps really haven't changed over the years. I mean, water is hail, Darley. They all have their basic setups, and then you just see different things like electronic pressure governors changing or things like that. But really, the concept is still the same. Um, when I was in League City Volunteer Fire Department in Galveston County, Texas, this is where I really learned the whole realm of pumping. At my station, I was at Station 3. We had an aerial and a pumper, and there was many times several of us would just step outside and pull the truck around back and hook up to the house water supply and just play with the pump, and move water and learn that when you pull this line, this happens over here, or this is how the pressure governor operates. And then we would take it one step further and go work with the aerial. We learned about how having a water supply coming into the aerial through the pump panel versus having it come through the rear of the truck. And spent a lot of time learning the intricacies of a pump. Now, as you can see, as a new firefighter, if you're a new firefighter or you're not a firefighter, at first glance, this pump panel, which by the way, I want to give a shout out to Marion Firebody for uh, building this beautiful truck for us. This pump panel, to many of you, may look very, very simple, very practical. Everything is color coded accordingly. Most manufacturers do that. However, to a new firefighter, this can look very, very scary. But in reality, if you just take the time to learn the skills and practice the skills, you can become a very good pump operator. You know, we have firefighters today that have the technical knowledge like no other, but sometimes we lack the mechanical. And like I said, a lot of us as officers, we don't take the time to tell them why the truck does this or why it does that. We had a customer come into our shop the other day, mentioned that every now and then the AC would just kick off. And we reminded them that this wasn't the issue, right? But we reminded them that, well, it could be the load manager shedding the AC. Maybe the batteries are bad, or maybe something like that. So we always start with something simple and work forward, right? But people forget about those systems that are on the truck. And there's a couple things, in my humble opinion. There's systems and safety systems on the apparatus to protect the truck, to protect the firefighter from getting hurt from the truck, and then also to protect the truck from the firefighter, the unknowing person attempting to operate the truck. There's a lot of, well, what do they call it? Fireman proof type systems, that fire manufacturers sometimes try to achieve. But again, looking at the pump panel, this could be very discouraging and very, very intimidating. But in reality, it's very simple. I mean, walking up to the pump, I can tell what's an intake and what's a discharge just by the color coding of the plumbing behind it. And I learned that honestly after spending all that time practicing with pumping apparatus in League City, I learned truly the mechanics of the trucks when I came to my current position and started as a firefighter. I remember when the fire chief at the time welcomed us. He told us, and I thought this was so odd. He said, if you plan on promoting through the department and want to be a good driver, you need to crawl up, around, and under this trucks and learn about how the systems work. And later on, I finally learned what that was. We have a very aggressive preventive maintenance program. It's kind of been watered down over the years, but I mean, we used to check everything from checking the oil to checking the differential level in the rear differential. But when you climb under the truck and see how the transfer case operates the pump, how it switches over from driving the rear axle to driving the fire pump, all the stuff kind of starts to make sense. But I think I want to encourage officers, as you train your firefighters to come up and learn how to drive and drive the apparatus, explain to them why the truck operates a certain way. Why when I lose a water supply does the truck idle up, or why does this or that? What pressure do I need the other truck supplying to me if they're hooked at the hydrant and they need to supply me? All those types of things. That way you don't activate the safety systems on the truck. But it's very important. We're seeing a lot more service calls in my other business. We're seeing a lot more service calls for maintenance and complaints about maintenance. And to be honest with you, a good friend of mine at work says I'm a victim of my own success. And so next time you're cruising around your city, if you're not a firefighter, or even if you are, we take really good care of the exterior of our fire apparatus. I mean, that's just what we do, right? We're always cleaning our trucks. Looks can be deceiving. Sometimes newer trucks that you think may only be 1 or 2 years old could be 6 or 7 years old just by the looks of them. And it's important that there's a couple things when it comes to fire apparatus maintenance. The people that own the apparatus, yes, they have a responsibility to provide funding to maintain your apparatus. But at the same time, the firefighter needs to have some accountability for his truck too. Sometimes there's many times where we can find items wrong with the truck ourselves and not have to take the truck out of service. There's times where little repairs can be done before it becomes a big cancer, if you will. And I'd like to encourage our viewers and our listeners to think about that and to consider taking a little time to love and cherish and figure out, learn your apparatus. These days, it's just a lot of times, like I said, foam systems. Let me give you a perfect example. The other day I was at the shooting range, right? And I was telling my friend, man, I'm so safe. I try to be so safe handling the pistol that I'm timid with it. I'm timid. I don't know how to run the gun. I don't know how to, I don't know any of that stuff. Of course, I don't practice enough. But at the same time, I'm so safety conscious about handling a firearm that I'm not proficient in it, right? Well, the same thing can be said about a foam system. When you walk to a pumper, you're driving a brand A pumper one day and you're driving a brand B pumper the next day, and they got two separate foam systems. You walk up, you're going to look, whoa, what is this? Or if you've been operating an apparatus that has a mechanical around the pump foam system that you've been using all these years, and all of a sudden you got a Foam Pro with an electronic controller. Next thing you know, you're just climbing on top of the truck and batch mixing because it's so much easier. And really, the systems that are made by these manufacturers are really very simple. They're even simple to troubleshoot. There's things you can figure out and determine just by reading the troubleshooting guide. Hey, how many of our viewers and listeners? Let me ask you this. And please type 1 if you actually do this. When I had my first vehicle and I had something not operating on the vehicle, I would go to my glove box and I would grab my owner's manual, and it would tell me where the fuse box was, and it would tell me which fuses controlled that particular device on my pickup truck, right? And that's the first thing you'd go do. You'd go check the fuse, and if the fuse was burnt, you'd replace it and you'd be on your way. How many people out there? Type 2 if you actually know. Please type 2 if you know where your owner's manual is for your fire apparatus. They're even making it easier nowadays because they're sending it to us electronically. We should have the electronic format in multiple locations for multiple types of people, multiple divisions of your fire department to be able to view it. But nobody looks at their owner's manual. Nobody, when their generator has an issue, nobody goes and checks the owner's manual to see maybe there's a relay that needs to be reset, maybe there's a fuse or something to that extent, maybe a filter needs to be changed, hydraulic filter. The other thing is get this, a lot of cities nowadays purchase apparatus without thinking, and this is just my opinion, they're not realizing the costs that come with owning a new fire apparatus, if that makes sense. So city buys a new $1.8 million ladder truck, and they know that they're going to get a X amount of year warranty, and they're going to have all these warranties on the truck. But we don't really understand or know that, hey, that aerial is going to need, especially if you're going from a city or a municipality or a fire department that's never had an aerial. You need to realize those expected maintenance that are now required of an aerial device. I understand there's towns that can't even afford to change their oil in their fire trucks, and that's really, really pathetic. Um, because there's so much stuff that can be avoided simply by doing preventive maintenance. The manufacturers share with us what we need to do. It's up to us to do that. And I'm not saying the firefighter necessarily needs to be out there adjusting the slack on their aerial, but I talked to a customer the other day, and they were saying, "Hey, this aerial we bought from you several years ago, it's a 2015." They said it's not lining up right. The pinnable waterway is not catching. We had to make some modifications. And my first question was, well, when was the last time you've had it tested, the aerial device? And the answer was never. That's not. You're not going to get a 20-year, 15-year aerial if you're not going to take advantage and do the required maintenance and testing. A lot of times when those third-party testers come out and do that stuff, they take it upon themselves, or it's part of their package, where they'll adjust all that stuff. If nothing else, they'll report it to you, and it'll help you get it addressed. But letting stuff like that linger, can definitely cause bigger problems down the road. And so what I'm getting at is understand the true cost of ownership when you buy a new fire apparatus, or any fire apparatus for that matter. But going back to the pump panel, like I said, it can be very intimidating. But if you get proficient at it, you practice with it. If you take some time to go out behind your fire station, or go to your training field, or just go hook up to a hydrant, flow some water, not even flowing water, just recirculating back into the truck and seeing how different stuff works. You can become very proficient at becoming an apparatus operator. I know friction loss is a big deal and all that stuff. All that stuff, friction loss can be pre-calculated before you even load the hose on your truck. If you load 200 feet of 1.5 inch on your truck, or 1.75 inch, you can already calculate your friction loss, so you don't ever have to calculate it on scene. The only time you'd have to calculate it on scene, of course, is if you start adding line to it. So friction loss, I know, can be it can be intimidating to everybody, but having those basic formulas, maybe in your little radio box on your pump panel or something like that, to kind of reminds you, in the event you have to lay 400 feet of 1.75 inch instead of your normal 200 feet, that can come in very handy. But reality is just practicing. Here's the other secret. Every manufacturer out there, whether they make this elbow, or they make this pressure governor, or they make the gauges, if you get in a bind and you call any one of them, they're going to help you out, and they're going to lead you in the right direction. If you don't have the funds to troubleshoot something, you can make a few phone calls, and sometimes they can help you out. A lot of times too, customers don't realize that their stuff's still under warranty. You have an emergency light like a Wayland or Code 3 or something like that go on a truck 3 years after you purchase it, and you figure, well, warranty was expired 6 months ago, or whatever, a year and a half ago. Well, the emergency lights may have a 5-year warranty. They may have a lifetime warranty, whatever. But those are the things that you really need to know your apparatus. And I know these days we want to jump in the vehicle, take off down the road, not have any challenges. But reality is, if we don't know the truck and we don't maintain the apparatus, and if we abuse the apparatus, we're gonna have trouble. So with that, I'm like to end today's video. I hope everybody got something out of this. I hope everybody's had a wonderful Labor Day weekend, and I'll catch you on the flip side on Justifiably Proud Production.